committee, which I'm not going to bore our viewers with. But anyway, what happened was she told the chairman of the 1922 committee that after the vote on her deal, this fourth vote that was going to happen on the 3rd of June, she would announce a timetable for her resignation. It's important to stress she didn't say she would resign. She would just announce a timetable for her resignation. And to my dismay, but not to my surprise, this was accepted and agreed to. And she then spent the next couple of days trying to drum up support in Parliament by the House of Commons on the 3rd of June. And then things started to happen. First, the Labour Party no longer prepared to continue its negotiations with Theresa May. Then it became increasingly clear that the Conservative vote in the Euro elections is collapsing. It is now, by the way, at 7%. Nigel Farage's party, the Brexit Party, is at 37% in the latest opinion poll. And then the third thing that happened was that Theresa May made a speech in which she announced various ideas that she had, which would, she hoped, persuade more MPs to support her plan. And these ideas included making it possible to include a customs union in her proposal, to her deal, which is what the Labour Party had demanded, and also a confirmatory second referendum. Now, this would have been a referendum which would have said, this is the two options are either back my plan or back staying in the EU. That was the two options that would have been on the table. Now, what happened was the Labour Party rejected this proposal, and we can discuss why in a moment. But what also happened was that the Conservative Party collectively in the House of Commons was horrified, because they said to themselves, we have consistently stood out against a second referendum, and here is Theresa May openly offering the Labour Party such a second referendum. So over the course of the last few days, there has been a massive Conservative revolt. They've told Theresa May in no uncertain terms that they will be voting against this deal also. They've also said that because she's now announced a willingness to consider a second referendum, they have lost finally what remaining confidence they had in her. And many of them are also saying to her that since there is no prospect of your deal passing on the 3rd of June, you may as well resign now. Now, what happened over the course of the last few hours is that various members of the government, senior cabinet ministers, wanted to meet with Theresa May to explain this all to her and to get her to resign immediately. She refused to meet with them. She has said that she still wants to go on, but she has finally agreed to meet the chairman of the 1922 committee on Friday. So she meets the chairman of the 1922 committee on Friday, who tells her that confidence in the parliamentary party is gone. The election results of the European Parliament come through on Sunday. I expect if there's going to be a resignation, which you can never count on with this Prime Minister, it will happen on Monday.
Okay, I don't know what to say. Is Theresa May just brain dead stupid? I don't get it. Maybe I don't get it. Yes. Maybe I don't get it. Here's my question to you. Okay, so Theresa May is going to put her proposal up for a fourth vote. Fine. Okay. She went to Labour and said, if you vote for this, if you vote okay for my proposal to take us out of the EU, but to keep us really inside the EU, inside the customs union, then I will give you a second referendum, and I will include more stuff in that customs union.
Yes.
I'm trying to put some reason and logic to her thinking that you're going to vote for my plan to take us out of the EU, but really it does keep us in the EU without many of the rights of being a full member, and in return, I'll push a second referendum to keep us in the EU?
Yes. What Theresa May's original plan was, and I've very much come round to this idea, is that what she was planning was that she would put this proposal, her original proposal, unamended, to the House of Commons on the 3rd of June. And she was hoping that the Labour Party would actually vote for it on the 3rd of June, and then would propose amendments, which would be a customs union and a referendum. And she was hoping that those amendments would pass, and there would be a second referendum, and her deal would be rejected in that second referendum, and Britain would then remain in the EU. I think that was the plan. What happened was that Jeremy Corbyn, who is seeing his own vote collapse, but is perhaps a bit more agile than Theresa May, rather than be put in that position, pulled out of the negotiations. So that left her in a very, very isolated position. So rather than suggest that she would just put forward her plan and then have the Labour Party amend it, she offered to amend it herself in a way which contradicted her own plan. If you take your mind back to what happened in Greece in 2015, you remember that Mr. Tsipras, the Greek Prime Minister, proposed a no vote in the referendum on the bailout proposal, while secretly wanting the vote to be a yes vote. That's exactly what Theresa May was up to, but she got caught.
Yeah, but the part that I'm finding a disconnect is, didn't her original plan have a customs unit component to it?
Yes. I mean, this is
why would she re-offer that?
Yes, this is of course the great sleight of hand that everybody has been engaging in, because if you read the text of her original deal, it in effect keeps Britain within the EU customs union. It says it quite clearly. It's there in black and white. But what it does,
but without the voting rights of being a full member, correct?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. But what it does is that it avoids the word customs union. It refers instead to customs arrangements. So what she was offering, in effect, was to change the wording from customs union from customs arrangement to customs union. I mean, this is complete nonsense. The really big thing was not the customs union, which is already what her deal involves. It was the second referendum. That was the real point of it.
So why would she offer then a second? If she's pushing, supposedly, she's trying to get the UK out of the EU in some form or another. Let's suppose that that's what she's trying to do. We all know that she's not, but let's go that way. Why not?
Yes.
What's the logic behind saying, you know what, I'm trying to fulfill the wish of the 17 million voters and, deliver a Brexit agreement, but I'm going to give a second referendum?
Yeah, that's the same question that the Conservative MPs, the Conservative media, and most of the country is asking.
I mean, the British people are going to pick that up right away. The people in the UK, they're going to pick it up right away. They're going to say, well, this is stupid.
Well, of course they did. That's exactly right. I mean, it is completely stupid. You are totally correct. I mean, it is difficult to convey, I think, to people outside Britain what a disastrous flop her speech was. I mean, the entire country and the whole political class was stunned because Theresa May announced a Brexit plan, supposedly, which reverses Brexit. That's what it was. I mean, it was astonishing, and of course, unsurprisingly, for most Conservative MPs, who now are facing a collapse in their party's vote and the massive discontent of party membership, That was just too much. I mean, they just couldn't accept that. So this is why her political position, what's left of it, has now collapsed. She's now, I think, I mean, she's now falling. She hasn't yet hit earth, but she's falling.
Does she have any support anywhere? Is anyone that dumb to actually support her at this point in time? Because they must be looking at her saying, you know, okay, you can be incompetent. That's one thing. You could be manipulative and devious. That's another thing. But the more this unfolds, Alexander, it just seems that she's not very bright.
Well, she's not very bright in anything except one thing, which is getting through the week. She's always very successful in avoiding a situation where she actually goes. And what she seems to be trying to do is she's trying to stay in as Prime Minister until the House of Commons goes on holiday, which it's due to do very soon. So this is her latest sort of trick, to remain Prime Minister for as long as possible. Now, why she is doing it is, I think, a really big question, because, I mean, by now, even she must realise that there's no chance of a deal going through. And the 1922 committee are now, I think, they've now finally reached the point where if she doesn't resign by some time over the next few days, they will change the rules to force her out. But she's, I think, still desperately clinging on and playing for time. And I don't understand it. And I think most people don't, because there doesn't seem to be any logic to it.
This is all the fault. All of this is happening because the Conservative Party and the Tories, to me at least, are spineless.
Well, this is absolutely correct. And if
at this point in time, I just have to say to myself, wasn't there someone in the Conservative Party, someone to gather all the party members around the table and just say, look, guys, we have a complete fool, a complete idiot running the show. We have to do so. I mean, this just seems like all the blame. I don't even know if you can blame Theresa May anymore.
Well, indeed.
The Conservatives are just, this is their fault.
Well, of course it is. And you're absolutely right. But I've been saying this for months. We've been saying this on our programmes for months. The Conservative Party should have moved to remove Theresa May. Not now. They should have done it back in the autumn after the disastrous plan that she produced to the Conservative cabinet at that famous meeting in Chequers, the Prime Minister's country residence, when Boris Johnson and David Davis resigned. And it didn't happen. And then there was a confidence vote in December, and she clung on. And she's been allowed to go on and on and on. The Conservative Party has been disintegrating. The country has become increasingly polarised and radicalised and unstable. And I'm going to say it bluntly, it has taken Nigel Farage to come on the scene to really start to concentrate minds. But look at what happened today when we are speaking. I mean, the day starts with all sorts of talk from all sorts of brave cabinet ministers saying Theresa May must go. They're all saying they want to meet her, they want to tell her to go. There are reports that she's going in hours. Then there is this meeting of the 1922 committee. They decide to put off the decision for a further 48 hours until their chairman meets her on Friday. What does that achieve? And you said these people are spineless. One utterly exasperated Conservative MP actually went further. He said they're jellyfish. Now, I don't understand that either. I would have thought, the law of self-preservation would have made them act against this disastrous Prime Minister by now, or at least at this point. And yet they still hesitate, and I can't understand why.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a company that's, being mismanaged, there's certain mechanisms in place that can, grab that CEO, that general manager, and pull them out of that position. You'll have a board of directors or shareholders. Doesn't the Conservative Party have any mechanism in place where they can say, you know what, this Prime Minister is sinking this ship, very, very quickly. We need to step in.
Well, the short answer is if there is no mechanism, as I said, the rules actually, the Conservative Party's rules don't allow a no confidence vote until December. But if there is no mechanism, you create one. I mean, at the end of the day, there's always a way to get rid of the leader if the leader has completely lost all support, as Theresa May appears to have done. The point is getting into that situation where people do this thing. Now, the Conservative Party has always historically been a very ruthless party with its leaders. When a leader fails, it gets rid of the leader and does so very, very quickly. It was done to Neville Chamberlain in 1940. It was done to Margaret Thatcher, very different person, in 1990 when they thought they would lose an election under her leadership. And it was done to all sorts of other leaders of the Conservative Party at various times. It is incredible to me that it has lost this skill. I mean, it was one of the things that made the Conservatives politically successful and very strong. Whenever they had a leader who was failing, they got rid of him. This time, they don't seem to know how. And I just don't understand why. I don't understand what has happened to them.
As they should. But give us, I mean, you may not understand, but give us your thoughts as to why. And let's close it out on this. Well, I mean, if you had to make an assumption as to why a party that has historically acted very quickly to remove poor leadership, why at this moment in time, at the most crucial point in British and UK history, one of the most crucial points with Brexit and leaving the EU, they were not able to draw upon that decisiveness.
Yeah. I'm going to give a guess, and I'll tell you what I think the guess is. I think there are two reasons. Firstly, we have been members of the European Union for 40 years. And I'm sorry to say this, but I think loyalty to the EU has become very, very embedded within the political class in Britain, not just the civil service, not just the Labour opposition, which is openly pro-EU, most of its members are, but even within the Conservative Party. Most Conservative MPs find it impossible to imagine life outside the EU, and that has made them stick with a Remain Prime Minister. The other reason is that I think the business community, the CBI, who have great influence within the Conservative Party and who are worried about preserving their supply chains and all that sort of thing. I don't take that very seriously, but there we are. I think that they have been lobbying very, very hard to keep Theresa May as Prime Minister because they don't want any sort of no-deal Brexit. I mean, they're absolutely open about that. And I think that's had some influence on Conservative MPs. And then I'm afraid the third reason is that the Conservative Party isn't united around an alternative leader. Back in 1940, as I said, when there was a crisis of comparable magnitude, in fact, greater magnitude, where Neville Chamberlain had clearly lost confidence, there was the towering figure of Winston Churchill ready to take over. There is no one around like that this time. There's Boris Johnson, but a lot of people in the Conservative Party don't trust Boris Johnson and don't like him. And so there's never been an agreement amongst Conservatives as to who should replace Theresa May. And with a Conservative cabinet very divided, very evenly divided between Leave and Remain, they each of them say, we'll stick with Theresa May because we don't want either a Leave Prime Minister, a straightforward Leave Prime Minister, or a straightforward Remain Prime Minister taking over from her. It has been a disastrous decision. It has taken a bad situation and it's made it far, far worse. It is proof that you should never put off a decision which you have to make, but they did put it off. And here we are.
Yeah, I mean, if a cynical take on that is your points 1 and 2 to me just sound like money from the EU, money from big business.
Well, I'm afraid, yes, I'm not denying that. I mean, I think that plays a very big role. I mean, it's important to say that not all Conservative MPs are wealthy people. Some are, but what all of them are is people who want to be wealthy people. Right. So I'm not suggesting that they straightforwardly take bribes, but they're all looking forward to the days when they get nice directorships in city companies and things of that kind. So clearly that plays a very big role. And of course, the EU is always there. The one thing the EU has always been very good at is looking after its own. Yeah. And there's all sorts of people who benefit from that also.
Yeah, the EU is